I do have some questions, but I'm actually going to ask one first of you, Nancy. Having gone through the co-op process myself and being, greased by it, have you found that if you, call up the agency that's requiring the co-op, are they helpful? Are there resources for those that really just have no idea what they're doing?
One of the things that we have in New Jersey is this State Water Quality Council and the Water Quality Monitoring Council, and basically it's a group that started with agency people talking to other agencies, so USGS, EPA, DEP, and some of the departments of health. They wanted to sort of coordinate monitoring projects that they were all involved in. And what developed from that was they started thinking about citizen science components. And because I was very active already, and they liked me, I was invited to be one of the first citizen science people to be on the Water Quality Monitoring Council. So that gives you a very, very different perspective. And also it gives you a different relationship. But it works both ways. The New Jersey people began to have a much better communication with their citizen science groups. And that's still in development. So I really think that that's where it all starts. But yeah, most of these people went into the environmental business to save the world, just like you guys did. It's just, they've become a little bureaucratic, but I think, yeah, in general, that's what you should do. In fact, also funders. You should really be talking to your funders when you have issues.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna throw this one out there to any of you on the panel. We know there is a poop near our site in the estuary. This person says, most likely from CSOs, but from which one is the question? Are there any citizens or others or studies of tide and flow effect on where the poop goes and when? So I'm assuming this means they must know of some incident in their area. Where can they go from here to address that?
That's actually a variation on a question I wrote on a card for Sri while he was up here that didn't get answered. So this is something that needs to be studied for each waterway, is my understanding. I'm not a hydrologist. I'm sure there's people better equipped to answer this, but that's kind of the fate and transport question. And depending on what the receiving water is, the amount of volume, the flow rates, how far it goes and how long it persists is something that needs to be studied, and it's something that needs to go into our predictive models. And I would just say, as a follow-up to the earlier conversation about instant, put a stick in and try and get instant information, that even though that is still a holy grail, technologically speaking, modeling is a good tool that people can use now to build really good models and use prediction based on known influences, especially in CSO communities and other communities that have a water-triggered contamination. And that would include those parameters. Fate and transport.
This also is for, I would say, any of you on the panel. It's a good one. What is the objective for volunteers to use water testing data? Most people know that we're system has issues, so what specifically are we trying to do?
I think that the purpose of having the volunteer to learn how to collect data, testing the data, testing the water, it's giving them a sense of the importance of, for example, giving them a sense of the importance of not throwing for medicines or any detergents or any of the chemical they use for cleaning purpose in the toilet, or giving them a sense of what they throw when they doing the dishes or things like that. It's giving them a sense, this is what's going on with my water in my community, so I better do something with my behavior to the damage or contamination to the water. It's giving them an understanding, because they're not going to report the data or do a research project, but teach the community or the volunteers how they can be an actor or participants of improving their water, and also involving the community. Like I said, we prepare them to advocate, to go to the elected official of the community. Look, this is what's going on in my community. We need you to do something to improve my water, because that will affect my health of my children. And that's what I think is important, to educate or have volunteer to be trained. I don't know if you want to.
I agree with that. The education goal is number one. I would say if you want to go a little further, you can also use your data, go to your town level, city level, or county level meetings to influence planning decisions, to influence investment. I know we have someone here from our Spark Hill sampling partner group who used the data on the Spark Hill Creek to get their township to actually invest in a broken pump station. That was the cause of a lot of sewage pollution, and they went in and thanks to the data, the river was in the room. The river was represented, not just by opinions, but by facts. So that's very powerful. And then if you want to go the COP level, if you want to go another level up and do something on the state level, you can also submit for 303D listings. You can get your water body listed as impaired, and that's a higher threshold, and that's where you do need a COP, and you're talking to EPA and your state level regulators to say you want them to take a state level action, but you can, that's just a spectrum, and if you hit the educate part and people use less water, that you've won. And then if you get something repaired, you've won again. And it's just layers of success on that.
I just want to add one little thing. You heard Bill Hedendorf before talking about students identifying a problem. The truth of the matter is, there's more work to be done than is possibly handleable by the agency people. And part of what we should be doing is working on figuring out where the problems are, and maybe even come up with some solutions. But there's data gaps, and that's one of the, another reason to filter out, what isn't a problem from what is a problem, and direct it to agency. We can help.
And continuing with that, I have a card here from comments from the EPA. Their advice: plan to budget for your co-op ahead of time. And EPA has resources to support citizen science and co-op. So please ask, and there's handouts on the table.
Meredith?
Yes.
I would also add that recently EPA came up with a simplified co-op guidance that is suitable for most citizen science projects, and it's on the website, and we put it on the resources pages. I'm not sure if I can't remember if we highlighted it enough, but we'll make sure that it's prominent there. But it's a much simpler and guided co-op. It wouldn't be good for the more complex projects, but for most citizen science projects would be fine. And as Meredith said, EPA does have resources. They have people that are working specifically to help volunteer groups or citizen groups put together quality assurance plans and help them think through that process.
Do I have time for some more?
Yeah.
Okay. This again, I think, is just to the panel. Are there basic water quality test kits that are available or can be loaned out for educators that want to do a citizen science project? Or are there volunteers that have kits that can, come on board offshore areas? So, like, a fisherman or somebody can give you a ride and you have testing with it. If there isn't a grant in place, I guess working for free. But you get a free ride.
You know, for coastal, you know, and ocean things, I would actually defer to the baykeepers because I don't know whether everybody's aware of this baykeeper, but they're probably, you know, they have their own type of testing equipment. I don't know, Bill, you just volunteers?
Can I jump in real quick? Because I am from Baykeeper.
Oh.
So you know, that is a question and a need that we often have is I have testing stuff for, you know, the oyster project, but it's not transferable really. I know Baykeeper was talking with Riverkeeper about trying to get involved, you know, getting an incubator and things like that, but we actually don't really have the testing equipment on board our vessels.
So we don't use these types of kits, but I have seen them and worked with them for other projects. So all that I can tell you is for the enterococcus study we use the Entero Alert system. You have to buy an incubator. It's pretty expensive. So you can get the consumables, the bottles and the reagent yourself. You can order them from Entero Alert and then bring them to a lab. Every county health department, as far as I know, has a lab, so that's an opportunity to kind of offset some of your expenses if you want to go that route. There are other little kits that you can get for basic parameters, pH and nitrate and things like that. And you can order those online if you just do some Googling for water quality kits. And then 3M has a new technology, which is a little kind of a portable Petri dish type of thing that does tests for sewage levels, but you know, they also recommend an incubator. It's kind of new technology. Some people are field testing it. I can't say definitively whether or not. Yeah, it's not as reliable, but they're starting. There's a lot of development and efforts in this area. So I would just go online and look and try and partner if you can with existing labs.
Yeah, and one thing that we do is we're partnered with Rutgers University on a bunch of projects, so often they'll, you know, take the samples and analyze them. But again, there's, you know, grant money associated with that. If you have the money to pay them to do it, but that's not always the case. I have a question for you, Tracy. How many people do you need for a tributary testing program? And how much time and money does it need?
Oh, that's a good question. So, well, everyone's a little different, and it depends on the size of the tributary. So generally, what we've been doing so far is on each tributary we'll have a site, maybe on average one every mile or 2 miles, depending on how big it is. Our biggest tributary site right now is the Wallkill River, and I think we have 30 sampling sites. That goes all the way through Orange County and into New Jersey. It's a long tributary. And then our smallest one, I believe, is the Pecanico, which is about 8 miles, and we have 12 sites on that. Typically, it's good to have at least one sampler who can do 2 or 3 sites if they're close together, and then maybe have a backup. So for the Pecanico, which has 12 sites, I have about a team of 8 people who do it. So it really depends how much time each person wants to put in. The rate limiting issue is you can only have a maximum of 6 hours from the moment you collect a sample to when you get it in the incubator. So you just need to make sure you have enough people to, from the moment you collect the sample or multiple samples, to get to the person who's at the incubator and give them enough time to prepare. So you can't really have one person take a whole trip and say, I'm just going to spend all day and do it. There is a time constraint. Generally, the cost of the samples for just out-of-pocket raw materials is about $15 per sample out of pocket. That's not counting the incubator and the lab, but just the bottle and the reagent and all that. So, and then there's, yeah, if you're paying someone to do it or volunteer, we have volunteers doing our trip studies. So I hope that's specific.
Great. I guess I have one more question for Glenn and Allie. Do you have any projects on the horizon that you would like to highlight where you're using citizens?
I think we mentioned it a little. We have a presentation sort of coming up on a project currently going called the Fish Advisory Project. I mentioned it a little on the presentation, but we have people going to different sites on the Arthur Kill Blueway. They're looking at people, where people are fishing, what they're doing with the fish, and sort of the conditions that area is in after the storm, and see if anything has sort of changed in that area in regards to fishing. They're also spreading some information about the fishing activities and fish consumption, and we're creating some maps both for public use and GIS maps sort of the area and the fishing habits. It's one project.
And just to add to that project, we talk to the community, to the fishermen in English and Spanish. So we give on-site education about the importance of reducing, of not eating or consuming the fish because it's highly contaminated.